now that alcohol is out of the picture, if you feel yourself being tempted to get pulled into like the drama and like, oh my God, I'm going to be boring forever. I don't want to go. I'm a terrible person. No, you guys remember, this is a phase. And it's absolutely definitely a phase that is actually a lot easier to get through and a lot more fun to get through when you're not navigating it alone. Welcome to the Shannon McCabe Show, where we break free from our drink-obsessed culture, challenge the myths around alcohol, and redefine sobriety as the empowering choice it truly is. I'm Shannon McCabe, sober coach, holistic nutritionist, and your guide to a life that feels better without booze. Whether you're newly sober, sober curious, or years into this journey, this podcast is here to give you the truth about alcohol, the tools to build lasting confidence, and the hope that a vibrant, fulfilling life is waiting for you on the other side. So grab your coffee or sparkling water and let's dive in. Hey you guys, welcome back to another episode of the Shannon McCabe Show. I just am so excited to be here with you guys today live, and as always, want to thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you, those of you that have taken time to leave a review and rate the show, only because that helps other women find the show. And I'm just so honored at what like a beacon for hope this has become. You guys, I think when I checked earlier this week, we have listeners in 64 or 65 countries now, which blows my mind. Like as a woman who not that long ago, a few years ago, was like hiding wine and vodka in her home office, just insane. Now having a platform and turning that dumpster fire of my drinking into something that actually is helping people. It never ceases to amaze me. And it's something that I literally thank God for every single day. But I say all that to just thank you guys for being here, for sharing, for rating the show and putting it out there more so that other people that need to feel less alone. It's really the whole point behind all of this, right? Is for us to realize that we're not alone. We're not lame. We're not crazy for not wanting to drink, and to focus on everything we have to gain when we choose sobriety, because we're not missing out. We're not giving up. We're reclaiming life. So all of that to say, you guys, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. It really means the world to me. So what I want to chat about today, this is actually a topic that's been coming up a lot inside my coaching groups, my communities, where I help women quit drinking, and then my community specifically for women that have already quit drinking and just want to connect with other sober women that get it. We've been talking about this kind of like the zone that we all find ourselves in at some point when we quit drinking, where we realize that we don't miss alcohol anymore. We are good. We're happy that we're not drinking. But what we miss is the like shortcut that it provided to help us feel connected with other people. So this comes up for a lot of us usually as we go down our sober path and find ourselves either hanging out with friends that we've had forever, hanging out with family, or find ourselves in the situations, whether it's like a work happy hour, a work event, maybe it's when you have these like forced get-togethers with your neighbors or with the parents of your kids' friends, maybe it's a sport team, things like that, where you're realizing how much alcohol used to be like the social lubricant that a lot of people rely on it to be. How even when it was artificial connection, even when it was surface level, things that you knew were not going to be like the lasting friendships, the super deep, meaningful interactions, but you used to at least feel like you could connect with people easily because you were drinking. And now you're sober. And so that like false connection, the false ease, the social lubricant of alcohol is gone. You're like, how do I do this? And also maybe the more nerve-wracking question is like, do I even want to do this? Because that's actually, I think, the point that a lot of us get to that we stumble over, because it's like, I'm realizing that I hate small talk. And I hate having to pretend that I have something in common with people, like just because our kids are on the same baseball team. Or I hate having to laugh at people's jokes just because I work with them. And so we find ourselves trying to figure out, like, what do I do now? How do I do this? How do I either push through because I have to be at this thing? Or how do I figure out what I actually have to be at? Or what does it look like to maybe put up a boundary and just be like, I don't actually want to do these things anymore. They don't interest me. But what does that mean then? Am I losing friends? Am I never going to make friends again? Can I not even stand being with my own family? What does this all mean, you guys? It can really mess with your head. And that's the whole point. That's the reason I'm bringing this up, why I want to talk about it today, because it really can mess with your head and it can cause us to doubt our ability to stay sober long term because we give into the fear that this is what it's going to be like always, that we are always going to find small talk insufferable, that we are never going to want to put ourselves in huge situations with large groups of people that we don't know, or that the office happy hour is always going to be annoying now. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's take this in stages, okay? Because a lot of times women are not prepared for this loss, right? We do so much work on like cravings. How do we get through cravings? We do so much work on how are we going to answer the questions about why aren't you drinking anymore? Are you really not drinking? Why did you quit drinking? Do you want something to drink? We do work on handling the big flashy things like your first sober Christmas or your first sober birthday, that wedding, a vacation, stuff like that. But a much less talked about thing is, what do we do when we lose this ease of like artificial sober lubrication because we're not drinking anymore? Because now we're acknowledging, and we have to acknowledge that alcohol, like we didn't turn to alcohol just to numb stress. We didn't turn to alcohol just to help us deal with the chaos of being parents. We didn't turn to alcohol just to help us with grief or trauma or anything like that. We turned to alcohol to like smooth over these awkward, uncomfortable parts. We used it to make like every hangout feel special and fun and magical. And we used it to make small talk feel tolerable. We used it to make connecting easier, even if we knew those connections were going to end as soon as we left that party because we were never really going to talk to like little Joey's mom again. We still relied on alcohol for this. So what we need to do now is something that a lot of us avoid doing because we feel like it can be judgy, and it can be judgy if you let it be, but it doesn't have to be. What we're doing now is acknowledging that quitting drinking exposes shallow connections. And we're not saying shallow to be judgy. We're not calling other people shallow. We're just acknowledging that alcohol often encourages and fosters really surface level, not deep, not meaningful, shallow connections. And that our society is actually built on these a lot. And so when we opt out of it, by not drinking anymore, it leaves us in this really uncomfortable, like uncharted territory where we're like, well, what do I do now? What do I do now? Because I don't really want to do the small talk, but I kind of have to. So we find ourselves in this like awkward middle phase, right? Because what's happened is by getting sober, by not drinking, we have realized that it's really hard to tolerate this most of the time. It's really hard to tolerate when people are loud and obnoxious, and when it's surface level small talk, when it's the forced socializing and the forced interactions that aren't actually based on any substance. Because when we were drinking, we didn't really care who we talked to, and we really didn't care what we were talking about, right? But we've taken alcohol out of the way, so our nervous system is coming back into alignment with our truth, which is that like we don't really like to do things that are emotionally exhausting if they're not completely necessary, right? And again, we're not judging, and we're not saying we're better than anybody else. We're simply acknowledging a way that we used to exist that used to be okay, and now we moved into this new space where the things we used to tolerate are not good enough for us anymore. And it's not passing judgment on people that still do it. This is all inward focused for us and our journey. And we're saying that, well, I don't really like these situations anymore. So what can I do about this? Because we're realizing that we are more sensitive and we want to be more selective. And our time and our energy is such a precious commodity that we really have become more discerning to who and what we give it to. So now we've got to kind of find our way through this middle phase of deciding who really does get our time and our energy without offending people, without making it seem judgy, without making it seem like we're better. We're just simply acknowledging what actually lights us up now and what doesn't, okay? Because we're no longer numbing ourselves to fit environments that really actually don't appeal to us at all. But a lot of us haven't yet actually created environments that fit us better, right? And especially in real life is where we feel this, because those of us that have connected in online communities at least have that safe haven, right? Like we have the group of women that we know get it, the women that are celebrating what we're celebrating, and the women that want to talk about real things rather than just like gossip and memes and small talk. And when we have these online communities, they're life-saving, but a lot of us don't necessarily have these yet in our real life, in our physical day-to-day. So what do we do? Because it's this temporary gap. That's the gap that scares us, because it's kind of uncomfortable and it can be lonely, and it can even feel a little bit boring, because it's like, well, but if I don't want to go to the neighborhood block party where everybody is drunk and laughing and loud and falling over, then that means that I'm probably sitting home alone. Does that make me boring? Does that make me lame? Actually, no, because a lot of us get to the point where we're like, we'd rather do that. I would actually rather be hanging out with my own kids than be surrounded by 20 drunk semi-friends. Or I'd rather be doing my skincare and reading a good book or watching that movie I've been waiting to see than staying out late making small talk. But what does this mean? I'm so boring now. But we're rephrasing all that, okay? We're reframing all of that. That's what we're talking about today. Finally, this has been such a long time coming. I am officially hosting my first sober retreat. We are going to Sedona in April 2026 for a long, luxurious weekend for sober women. This is going to be really just the embodiment of all the work I do in my coaching containers, basically. So we are going to just talk about how do we create a life that actually feels good once we've quit drinking? Because we don't quit drinking to just not drink, right? We do it so that we can heal and feel fantastic as much of the time as possible. So we are going to have some guided workshops all by me. This is going to be an intimate weekend for me and you and other sober women to hang out and to talk about the habits that us deal with the stress in our lives, the habits that help us heal our body and heal our mind. So there will be some talk on nutrition. There'll be some talk on other things I do on a daily basis to recover from the damage that alcohol did, but to also keep me growing in health and keep me emotionally strong and resilient. There's going to be spa treatments. There's going to be this resort is so gorgeous, you guys. We're looking at, the Red Rocks in Sedona, pool time, amazing food. Food is included. So I just encourage you guys to check this out. Space is limited because I want this to be a really close, tight knit, supportive group where we're gonna have these conversations that are gonna stay with us for the rest of our lives. We're gonna make connections that we're gonna look back on and be like, this shifted during that one weekend and changed how I felt about this going forward, how I felt about myself, how I showed up in my life going forward. So all of the details are in the show notes. They're on my website. You can find them on Instagram. Spots are limited. So if you are at all interested, check it out. Reserve your spot. It's going to be so beautiful. And I really hope I get to meet some of you in Sedona. So a part of this too, a big part of this and what I just hit on when we're talking about the block parties, the team parties for your kids, it can even be work. It can be book club. It can be anything. It's calling out and reframing this myth of everybody is bonding. Everybody is getting to know each other. Everybody is connecting. Everybody is having fun. Because it's really easy to assume that everybody else is actually really deeply bonding or really forging real connections when they're not. Just because they're louder and just because they might be laughing a lot doesn't mean that they're actually making real connections. And most of us can attest to that, right? Because most of us have been that woman where we swear we made a new best friend at a party because we were both doing shots of Fireball together at the bar. And then the next day I'm kind of like, oh God, what did I actually say to her? What did we talk about? And why do I have this text from her in my phone? And what did I promise we were going to do? That's not actually real bonding, is it? It's not the basis for a real nourishing friendship. It's just when we get looser and probably actually kind of even compromise some of our values because who knows what we even said? Who knows what we even did? We were just going along with the crowd, and we were there for the alcohol, and we were drinking, and we were laughing and talking and saying whatever, but none of it really had that much substance behind it, right? So we get to this point where we're realizing and have to acknowledge that volume and frequency of interactions does not actually equal intimacy. And that most of the time, being buzzed with somebody or being buzzed with other people isn't actually belonging. Like, you're not really creating lasting, true social connections. You're simply existing in the same space and the same time, temporarily connected by this social lubricant, by alcohol. But once that evening is over and once that alcohol is gone, very rarely are those connections actually still steady or fruitful, right? And sometimes they are. I'm not saying that they're not, but a lot of times they're not, okay? So what we have the chance to do here, and what I want to do here, is help you guys reframe all of this as realizing that you're just developing preferences rather than seeing this as a deficiency, because wanting to opt out of this is not a deficiency. If anything, it's just you're growing, you're maturing, you are becoming a different version of you, okay? Preferring smaller groups, preferring more depth to your conversation, preferring to actually have a shared interest or a shared activity that's not just drinking. You guys, it's not being antisocial, and it's not even being judgy or better than. You are simply growing and evolving. And not everybody is going to grow with you or evolve with you, but you'd be surprised how many people will when you start putting your focus and your energy on that rather than paying attention to the things that you're tempted to think you're missing out on now, right? When we're honest about our desires, when we're honest about what we actually want and need, when we're honest about, you know what, I actually would rather hang out with 5 women and have meaningful conversations than hang out with 20 drunk moms, you guys, that's okay. We're honoring ourselves then. And this is the time in sobriety when a lot of us women discover that we're actually like, we're not broken, and we're not even socially awkward. We're just not built for like overly loud, overly stimulated, completely unstructured, only held together by alcohol environments. And a lot of people outgrow those. It's just usually at varying times, right? So you might feel like the only one right now, but you probably really are not the only one. Okay? And so when we make these realizations, when we realize this, first of all, I hope you guys are hearing and understanding and feeling that like you're not alone and you're not broken and you're also not lame. You're not destined to like spend your life alone or anything like that. You are just, this is a growing pain. This is a phase of sobriety that we think of like growing pains, okay? And now you're at a point where you kind of get to decide how you move forward from here. What are you going to do when you're confronted with these situations and you have to decide what you're going to do? Because each situation is different and unique. And this is where we get the chance to develop our own agency. We now have the chance to decide, is this a situation where I really do need to show up, right? Maybe it is the work event that you have to go to. Maybe it is the party for your kid's activity and it's really important to your kid and so you want to go. But what we can do then in those situations, you guys, we go with boundaries. We know our limits, we acknowledge our limits, and we work on honoring our desires and what we need, right? So it's like, yes, I have to go to this work thing, but I'm only staying for 2 hours and then I'm leaving without guilt or without apologies. Or yes, I need to go to this parent party. I'm bringing my own NA drinks. I am maybe going to plant myself in a corner and only talk to 2 people instead of feeling like I need to talk to everybody. And I'm going to leave when I want to leave. Because you guys, first of all, and a lot of the truths about these situations, when they are really alcohol heavy environments, once those people start drinking a lot, they are not going to care what you're doing. Most of them are not even going to remember when you leave or not, right? It's kind of that age old thing we talk about, that inherently humans are really selfish. We're all focused on ourselves. So don't like bog yourself down worrying about what other people are going to think, because especially if they're drinking, they're not even going to notice. Which is good for you because you can set your boundaries, set your limits, do what you need to do to show up, check the boxes, and then leave and feel good about yourself because you fulfilled like your responsibility, you fulfilled your duty, but now you still get to just leave and be done and go home and do what you really want to do. Spend quiet time with your kids. Get to your nightly routine that brings you peace and brings you joy. Like, that's okay. And then the second path to this is figuring out, when can we really actually just opt out of these things? Like, I feel like as a society, we are actually coming to this a lot more. And maybe it's more as we age. Like, it's definitely a conversation I see women my age. I want to say even women once we hit our 40s, maybe more so than those of you that are still like in your 30s. Absolutely, as we even get closer to 50s and 60s. I'll be 48 this winter. I'm really just like, I'm done apologizing for not wanting to do something. And not in again, it's not a judgment. It's not a holier than thou. It's just like I'm getting older. I'm tired. Like, my physical and mental energy is such a premium for me that if something doesn't feel like a really easy, excited yes, then it's probably going to be a no. And I'm not going to feel bad about that because life is short. I'm not going to do stuff I don't want to do. What's the point of that? Well, obviously, there are times we have to do it, but those times actually are not nearly as frequent as they think we are. So there's a lot of times you can just graciously decline an invitation. You can bow out. And when we do this, most of the times we realize, like, you know what? The world did not stop spinning. You're not being like ostracized from a community that you desperately need in your life. Most of the time, it's just like, we're busy. This doesn't work. Thank you anyways. And you see that life still does go on. There are going to be other invitations. There are going to be other things that you want to go to. And also a big part of this is understanding, you guys, that you might be in this little phase, this phase of feeling extra sensitive to the over drinking, to the loudness, to the craziness. It might just be for a little while, right? A lot of us hit that too. Like, when I first quit drinking, a lot of us have that bubble in the very beginning when we're not sure if we're going to be tempted. So we skip social stuff for a little while. And then we start venturing out more because we want to prove to ourselves and prove to other people that we can do all of these things just without drinking. And we do that for a certain amount of time. And then usually the next phase after that is this phase we're talking about here, where we're like, well, but wait, some of this stuff just really does not, I'm annoyed. I don't want to be here. This is not fun. It's not worth it to me. So then some of us might really retreat again a lot, but it's different than it was in very early sobriety, right? We're not retreating because we're tempted by alcohol. We're retreating because we're really honoring our need and our desire for meaningful interaction and for solitude and for things that fill us up rather than drain us. And then we get to a point usually where we realize that we absolutely have the ability to decide on really a case-by-case scenario how invitations and gatherings fall into this framework that we have now of like, okay, I need to go to this for a little while. I'm not looking forward to it, but I am emotionally resilient enough now because of my sobriety to understand that I can go to something, can plaster a smile on my face, say hi, make small talk because I need to for like an hour or two, and then I'm going home and I'm not feeling guilty and I'm not apologizing. Or I'm also emotionally resilient enough and confident enough in my sobriety and in life in general to be like, I have zero desire to go to that. I'm not going to go and I'm not going to feel bad. I'm actually not even going to think about it once I say no, because life's too short to ruminate over any of this. So there are these phases to sobriety. And that's part of this too, is always reminding ourselves to just zoom out and remember that if something feels really tender and really emotional, and you feel really conflicted right now, that itself is usually a hallmark sign of this just being a phase. You are in a small phase of your sober journey right now. So don't worry about what things are going to be like forever. Don't be like, oh my God, I'm going to be alone forever. People are going to stop inviting me to stuff. I'm going to be a sad woman that dies alone in 20 years. Oh my God, you guys get over it. You're talking about right now. So if the super loud holiday parties, if the T-ball parent mixer is just like, I have zero desire to go, just don't go. Don't make it have any meaning about the rest of your life. Okay? It could just be for now. It could just be for right now, okay? So when you're navigating the situation, trying to figure it out, sometimes there are questions we can ask ourselves when we're trying to decide, should I go to this? Should I not go to this? What does this certain group of people look like for me now? What does this occasion look like for me now? So some things that I did, some things that I offer to my clients when we're talking through conversations like this is one, like in the past, if alcohol absolutely was like a bridge to connection for you, now that alcohol is out of the picture, what does real connection look like and feel like for you right now? Okay. And then another one is acknowledging that learning how to build connections in sobriety is actually a skill. It's not a personality trait. Like some people, yes, might be better at it naturally, but it is actually a skill that any of us can learn with the right guidance, with enough time and with enough practice. So the important thing to remember here is that this phase, it passes. Like I said, this is usually just a short stint in your bigger sober journey. So if you feel yourself being tempted to get pulled into like the drama and like, oh my God, I'm going to be boring forever. I don't want to go. I'm a terrible person. No, you guys remember, our subconscious loves drama. It's going to try to suck you into this. Our society loves drama, actually. It's going to try to make this mean much more than it needs to mean. This is a phase, and it's absolutely definitely a phase that is actually a lot easier to get through and a lot more fun to get through when you're not navigating it alone. Like I said, we've been talking about this so much in my sober communities, and it's just amazing to see how as sober women, we can support each other. We can share ideas. We can talk about like, yes, I had this thing last weekend and this is what I did and it worked so well. This situation crashed and burned. I hated it, but now I know that I'm not going to do this again. I'm going to do A, B, and C instead. Like it's just incredible how much progress we can make really quickly through some of these sticky phases when we're not doing it alone, you guys. Okay. And I want you guys to know that, yes, these are exactly the kinds of conversations that I have on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, inside my coaching spaces or with my private one-on-one clients, where women are coming together to not just be women that don't drink, but to be women that intentionally are rebuilding their life without alcohol, that are like, okay, I'm going to figure this out now. I'm not just taking out alcohol so that I have all this empty space in my life where alcohol used to be. What am I filling the space with now? What are the habits and the thoughts and the beliefs and the relationships with new sober friends that I can fill this up with, right? So that we're coming together and saying, okay, not just like, how do I stay sober, but how do I actually do my life in a way now that feels really good, so that alcohol continues to be like less and less of a thought, so that we arrive at this point sooner or later, we're like, no, I don't even think about drinking anymore. I don't even miss it. Why would I even want to? Those are the conversations that like I have on a daily basis and I just love. They just light me up. So you guys, those are the conversations. That's like the next step. That's the deeper level of connection that we just can't get in a podcast episode. So if that calls to you, like if this is highlighting for you, like, God, I need that in my life. I want that in my life. I want sober women that understand what I'm going through. I want to actually have people to talk about this with. So it's a two-sided conversation. You're not just passively listening, or you're not just reading something on my blog or reading something on Instagram, but we're hanging out and we're talking. Then there's more for you. There's a whole nother layer of how we can be connecting beyond this podcast. So I encourage you to reach out and to pursue that if you want to, because as beautiful and like life-changing and affirming as this podcast is, it really is actually just the tip of the iceberg. Because when we connect with each other, that's when sobriety gets really good. That's
it for today's episode. If this conversation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And if you're loving the show, I'd be so grateful if you'd leave a quick review. It helps others find this message and start their own journey to freedom. Until next time, keep choosing yourself, keep believing in what's possible, and remember, you are so much stronger than you think.
That's when this gets really good, and that's when this gets really magical. So I encourage you to check out the links in the show notes and connect with me if that interests you. It's so amazing. It's so good. I love the work that I do. I'm so grateful. I mean, I can't even tell you guys how grateful I am that I get to not only have these awesome conversations with you guys and hear about how they're affecting you, but then those of you that do become just closer friends and people in my life when we get to work together to make sobriety like the awesome freaking thing that it can be. It's so fun. So anyways, always in the show notes, you guys know that you can always send me an email, come find me over on Instagram and let me know how this episode landed for you. I would love to work with you more closely if you're ready for that. Otherwise, thank you for hanging out and I appreciate your time and I will see you again next week.